If you think you know the Nokia story just because you used to play Snake on one of those indestructible plastic bricks back in the day, well, you are missing out on one of the absolute greatest corporate reinventions in modern business history. Welcome to This Explainer, where we're going to uncover how a 160-year-old company completely abandoned the very consumer product that made it world famous, shifted gears, and quietly rebuilt itself into a highly profitable, modern B2B connectivity powerhouse. It is a total masterclass in survival, and honestly, it starts with completely shattering the image most of us still hold of them. Okay, let's dive right into this massive paradox. On one hand, you've got that nostalgic consumer memory, those classic blocky handsets that basically defined an entire era of communication. But contrast that completely with the invisible modern reality of global network infrastructure. Because here's the thing, Nokia doesn't make phones anymore. That chapter, it's entirely closed. Instead, today they sell the deeply complex, advanced technology that telecom operators actually use to build and run their networks. They went from being the device in your pocket to literally becoming the critical plumbing of the modern internet. To truly appreciate their incredible rise today, we really have to rewind and remember their absolute peak. At one point, Nokia captured an unthinkable 40% of the entire global phone market. Think about that for a second. Back in the year 2000, you didn't ask what brand of phone your friends had. You just asked for the number. Do you have a 3310 or a 5110? Valued at over $290 billion, they were Europe's most valuable company and practically the foundational pillar of Finland's entire economy. It's just wild to think about that level of market saturation today. I mean, they didn't just compete, they completely dictated the terms of the market. But as happens with so many giants, extreme hubris at the very top led to completely distorted internal reporting, especially when the iPhone launched. Because Nokia had won for so long, the executives just felt invincible. Top brass demanded an immediate counterattack, and that intense pressure terrified middle management into basically embellishing their progress. Nobody wanted to be the one to deliver the bad news, meaning leadership was essentially flying blind right into a massive technological storm. They were building responses to a threat they fundamentally didn't understand, and they were relying on overly optimistic promises rather than reality. And wow, did that internal dysfunction trigger a catastrophic fall? Mobile phone revenue violently plummeted by billions in just 5 short years, dropping from over $36 billion in 2007 down to just $20 billion by 2012. The share price just completely collapsed. The overarching challenge was that the world had irreversibly moved on to touchscreen smartphones, and Nokia was caught holding outdated technology, just bleeding cash every single day. This wasn't just a slight dip in sales, right? It was the total, rapid evaporation of their core business model. By 2013, Nokia was pushed to the brink and made a desperate, dramatic survival decision. They sold their struggling handset business to Microsoft for over $7 billion. Naturally, the media had a field day with this, writing Nokia's obituary as the final nail in the coffin for a European tech giant. Now, Microsoft wanted the hardware for its Windows Phone OS, but for Nokia, this was strictly about getting the necessary cash required to avoid total bankruptcy. They essentially had to cut off the dying limb just to save the core of the company. So, Nokia's phones disappeared from store shelves, but the company itself didn't, which leads us to the ultimate question. What on earth did they do with that massive financial lifeline? They were suddenly sitting on a mountain of Microsoft cash, but they no longer had a flagship consumer product to sell. What you should really take away from this specific moment is that corporate agility is absolutely everything. They had to figure out what their true value was in a world that no longer wanted their phones, and they had to figure it out incredibly fast. Well, they realized their true remaining core asset was their deep historical expertise in telecom networks. Remember, they had been building multinational cellular networks since the 1980s. They already understood exactly how radio waves, cellular towers, and complex back-end systems connected people on a global scale. So they didn't actually pivot to a brand new industry, they just pivoted to the invisible half of their existing business, the critical infrastructure that makes mobile communication actually work. It was a massive, bold leap of faith, completely into the B2B world. Tracing how this unfolded, you really see a masterclass in aggressive scaling. First, they sell the phone division, and then immediately use that Microsoft cash in 2014 to buy out Siemens' stake in their joint network venture, taking full 100% control of their destiny. They absolutely did not just sit on their capital. Then, in 2016, they went all in, dropping a staggering 15.6 billion euros to acquire Alcatel-Lucent. This wasn't some passive shift. This was a calculated, rapid-fire restructuring designed to entirely dominate a completely different sector. And that 15.6 billion euro acquisition,
It was a total masterstroke that drastically shifted Nokia's market position. It expanded them far beyond just wireless networks, securing roughly 24% of the global market share right out of the gate. It gave them optical and fixed networks, instantly turning them into an end-to-end global telecom heavyweight. But, we should be clear, it wasn't easy. Integrating two massive, distinct corporate cultures is a brutal operational challenge, and it took them years to smooth out. It severely tested their leadership, but ultimately, it successfully positioned them to handle almost any kind of data transfer a telecom operator could possibly need.
So where does that leave them today? What makes Nokia so incredibly resilient now is how they've stabilized their income across three very distinct B2B pillars, rather than relying on a fickle consumer device. First, you have the networks business, which generates the bulk of their revenue by building physical, mobile, and broadband infrastructure. Second, cloud and network services, helping operators efficiently manage those complex networks through software. And third, their absolute secret weapon, patent licensing. This three-pronged approach means that if one sector dips, the others keep the giant moving forward without breaking a sweat. Now, while building global infrastructure is definitely their bread and butter, Nokia also holds a staggering 26,000 patent families. Yeah, 26,000, including thousands that are absolutely essential to modern 5G. Just let that sink in. Decades of intensive R&D didn't just evaporate when the phone division shut down. Every single time you stream a video on your current smartphone, there is a very high chance your device, your carrier, or your network is utilizing and paying for technology that Nokia invented and legally owns. They are quite literally woven into the fabric of modern communication. And here's the best part for Nokia. This intellectual property portfolio acts like a true money machine. It embeds Nokia deeply across the entire global tech ecosystem. Because the R&D costs for those 26,000 patents are already a sunk cost from years past, the licensing checks that come in the mail flow almost entirely straight to the bottom line. It's an incredibly high-margin business that acts as a powerful financial shock absorber for them. Whether you buy an Apple, a Samsung, or a Google device, Nokia is quietly collecting a toll right there in the background. So the ultimate result of this massive corporate pivot is absolute, rock-solid financial stability. The contrast is pretty stark. In recent years, while top rivals like Ericsson were actually posting losses, Nokia posted $26.3 billion in net sales with a $2.6 billion operating profit for 2021. That is remarkably efficient in a B2B space that's widely known for really thin hardware margins. Even when the broader telecom equipment market slowed down in 2023, Nokia remained highly profitable while competitors bled cash. It proves that their restructuring wasn't just a fluke, it was highly, highly sustainable. But they aren't stopping there. With their financials completely secure and, frankly, a 160-year history of constant reinvention under their belt, Nokia is aggressively investing in the next frontier. They went from a paper mill back in 1865 to rubber, to cables, to phones, and now to network infrastructure. And today, they see the future in something called physical AI. It's a fascinating concept. They firmly believe AI won't just live in distant, massive server farms. It's going to need to live natively within the actual network infrastructure itself to process data with absolutely zero lag. And they want to be the ones building that physical reality. To get there, they are making some highly ambitious bets to fundamentally change how global networks operate. First, they are physically building AI right into the base stations to optimize network performance in real time. Second, they are establishing mini data centers right at the edge of networks to power low-latency enterprise applications. And third, and perhaps most importantly, they are partnering up with tech giants like NVIDIA to pioneer AI radio access networks. They essentially want to be the absolute bedrock that makes real-time, physical artificial intelligence possible for smart cities, automated factories, and everyday consumers. Which leaves us with a totally fascinating question as we wrap up this explainer. Will these bold bets on AI secure Nokia's dominance for the next generation? Or will the rapidly changing tech landscape rise up to challenge them all over again? They miraculously survived the smartphone collapse by pivoting brilliantly to networks, enduring brutal integrations and massive market shifts. Now, as AI demands completely reshape the globe, Nokia is right back at the starting line of a massive technological race. So keep your eyes on the invisible infrastructure powering our world, because Nokia is definitely the one out there building it.